Hey guys, so Disney's kinda going buck wild with these live action remakes, aren't they? Which is crazy to me because their history of live action remakes isn't great to begin with. And I say this as someone who is just like genuinely not at all interested about 3/4 to basically all of the Disney live action remakes that they put out so far. I mean, I didn't see the live action Mulan, I didn't see the live action Beauty and the Beast, I did see live action Maleficent, but that was almost like 10 years ago, and honest to God, I don't remember a single thing about that movie except the king was the dopey main character from District 9, and I could not take him seriously as a menacing threat whatsoever.
Well, this is a nice cat food, you know. We need you to sign there, okay? There it is. Now you can take that. Oh, okay, all right, come on.
The thing about that was a catnip for cats, only a lot more intense.
So, I guess, long story short, live-action Disney movies don't really mean much to me since I barely pay attention to them at all. But of course, since my job is literally being on the internet, there are some things that I can't help but become aware of. For example, the incredibly annoying and stupid discourse around The Little Mermaid. See, I've purposely avoided talking about this movie and the meaningless controversy around it because I just don't care to comment on the melanin density of a fictional fish teen in a movie made for people a quarter of my age. I think it's simultaneously hilarious and depressing that the social discourse around The Little Mermaid is dominated by adults who, for some reason, have become highly emotionally invested in a movie that, one, isn't even out yet, and two, it's just going to be another mediocre bargain bin live-action Disney movie. It's not that deep, y'all, and that's about as much as I'll say on it. But because of The Little Mermaid and the buzz it created, it seems that live-action fever has swept over Disney Studios and is manifesting as 2 new live-action productions coming out in the near future: Lilo and Stitch and Moana. Now, one part of me is actually super excited for this. I've mentioned it on the main channel before, but I absolutely love Polynesian and Pacific Islander culture. I think the people, their history, and their land are underrepresented in fiction, especially because it's just such a cool setting. Knowing that Islander culture is going to be getting 2 huge budget movies to showcase all the awesome things those cultures have to offer is really cool, and I'm genuinely excited for it. But with that out the way, I'm also in the same breath thinking, why in the world are these movies being made? I mean, obviously, I know the answer is money, but like, come on. Moana was released 7 years ago. Aren't these live-action movies all about cashing in on nostalgia and reimagining the stories with enhanced visuals because of new technology? Moana is a gorgeously animated film. I honestly think that it might look uglier as live-action because it can't be as exaggerated as animation would allow. And as far as nostalgia goes, what nostalgia could there possibly be? There are kids who watched Moana when it came out who are still kids now. This is like if Marvel decided to release a full feature-length animated version of Endgame. Like, sure you can, but why? It's not even like a new dimension of the story will be added because of the live action. If anything, things will be worse. Can you imagine Hey Hey the neurodivergent chicken in live action? What about Tematoa, the 40-foot-tall gold-encrusted neon-singing crab? You think that's gonna transfer over to live action well? And this specific issue is only made worse for Lilo and Stitch. That movie definitely has the nostalgia factor and is definitely a cult classic within the Disney catalog. But I shudder to think what live action is gonna do with that movie. The reason I say this is because animation as a narrative tool is used to control tone. It's a medium for presenting narrative material in exactly the way you want your audience to perceive it, visually, emotionally, or otherwise. To put this into proper context, let's think about what the premise of Lilo and Stitch actually was about. Nani was a young woman, possibly a teenager, I'm not really sure at this point, but she was trying to raise her little sister Lilo on her own because their parents had died in a car accident during a rainstorm. Because of the difficulty of basically being a single mother, Nani is constantly hyper-stressed and is in fear of losing Lilo because of Child Protective Services. Throughout the movie, Nani is literally at her wit's end, doing everything she can not to have the last little bit of her family implode underneath her watch. When you watch that as an animation, you can sort of forget about all that as the exaggeration and caricature of the world brings your attention to other things. But live action? That's freaking dark, man. Are we really going to market a story about fending off CPS to children? Because that's what Lilo and Stitch basically is. And I haven't even gotten to Stitch yet. He starts the movie as a, no hyperbole, literal homicidal maniac, purposely created to have no morals or mercy. Stitch is a hyper-intelligent, incredibly foul-looking psychopath that spends the first half of the movie hell-bent on destroying Earth and basically anything he comes in contact with because it's only his programming, and the only reason he's not doing it is because he's scared of water. Again, animation can make this character silly and fun and harmless, and that's what happens in the movie. But live action will have a much harder time. It's kind of like those pictures of Pokemon in-game versus those same Pokemon if they were real. It's rightfully terrifying because the reality of situations often brings up more serious considerations and implications. All this is basically to say that live action has a tendency to innately pull a fiction towards a more realistic tone. I don't think Lilo and Stitch or Moana would be serviced by transitioning their visuals to realistic representations. But, you know what Disney movie I do think would benefit from that? Atlantis, your favorite animated movie, even if you don't realize it yet. But in all seriousness, Atlantis: The Lost Empire is an actual example of an animated fiction that will be empowered by a transition to realistic visuals. It exists within that very unique spectrum of 2000s animated films. You know the ones: Sinbad, Treasure Planet, El Dorado, those kinds. These are movies that are explicitly focused on more mature, serious narratives at their core and basically snuck into a PG rating by being animated. But I think of all the films mentioned, Atlantis would benefit the most from a live-action remake, and that's because its visual material always borders on serious anyway. Sure, the characters themselves are exaggeratingly proportioned, so that they can be silhouetted distinctly, recognized just from their outlines, which is a basic rule in design. But even those exaggerations are based in reality. Some of the characters are bigger, shorter, rounder, wider, but they are meant to serve as a distinct representation of different body types, not caricatures of the human form. And that's because the characters were meant to be taken seriously. They were three-dimensional, dynamic people that could honestly be portrayed even better with real humans enacting them on screen. Yet beyond that, so much of the spectacle of the movie ties directly into the character experiences and what events made them who they are. The cataclysmic destruction at the beginning of Atlantis and the deification of Kita's mother served as the basis for the entire conflict of the film. The fight against the Leviathan and the journey through the caves not only built up the world for the audience to understand the grandeur of the civilization that was lost so long ago, but worked to validate Milo as he saw the dream that he carried for his entire life become real. The city of Atlantis itself, its technology, its architecture, and the eventual battle for the very survival of the culture is made more dramatic and intense by the scope and scale of the spectacle. Rourke's transformation into a literal hell beast inside the erupting volcano signifies his horrible inner self becoming reflected on the outside. And all these things I mentioned would have their impact increase tenfold through realistic CGI and realistic people. Would it have the same appeal to children as a Cinderella remake or a Moana remake? Probably not, but in all honesty, the original Atlantis was barely aimed at children. There was murder, death, sacrifice, love, religion, and very nearly genocide for the sake of greed. The people who loved the original Atlantis are adults now, possibly with kids of their own, so not only is the nostalgia there, a right new audience is present that includes people of all ages to appreciate a newly minted remake. Recently, a poster about a live-action Hunchback of Notre Dame dropped online, and the internet fell off its collective rocker. It got big enough to the point that Josh Gad, who was fan cast as the real-life Quasimodo, had to tell people it wasn't real, but he really wished it was. There's a fervent desire out there for live-action remakes of certain animated movies. We don't want soulless cash grabs like The Lion King that literally had to star-stud their cast just to convince people to enter the movie theater because the substance of the film was so lacking. We want remakes of the movies that took us seriously as children, movies that showed us drama and harsh lessons and real characters struggling with their own hearts, movies that would translate well to being represented by real people. Live-action remakes have a place in cinema. The Last of Us on HBO proves that inarguably. The key is to know which narrative would benefit from such a reimagining and how to faithfully and lovingly accomplish such an undertaking, not for money, but for a passion for the source material. Anyway, thanks for watching all the way through my ramble. If you like what you heard, like, comment, and subscribe. If you really want to be a homie, I'll have a link to my Patreon in the comments, or you can check out my website for my books and editing services. As always, it was a pleasure, and I'll talk to you all again soon.